What's up, folks, and welcome to Retro Ramble. I got more shmupulations for you today. Oh, yes, and better still, it's more Toaplan Shmupulations. Yeah, Bitwave Games have given us yet another 4-pack of awesome shmups from one of the most well-regarded shmup developers there ever was. So we're taking a look today at the Toaplan Arcade Shoot 'em Ups Pack Volume 3. So there are now 12 of these guys out on Steam, and this is fantastic. They've been cranking out a lot of these really good shmups that previously never had a legal and easy way to play on PC, and I'm really glad to see these. I believe they've said that this is going to be the last one of these for Toaplan, but I guess we'll see. They're both owned by the same parent company, so I guess we'll see what happens with that. But yes, we've got another 4-pack today, and I have to admit, a couple of these are ones that I was not super familiar with, but 2 of them I was very familiar with. And as usual, they've kind of mixed things up. These are 4 very different shmups. So in here, we've got Fixeight, Tiger-Heli, Batsugun, and Vimana. And as usual, you can buy these piecemeal if you want, but if you buy them as a bundle, it is a lot less expensive. That is definitely how I would recommend doing it, is picking up the bundles for the ones that you're interested in, because you get almost 2 for free when you do that over buying piecemeal. So as usual, we're going to check out each of these, so you can check the chapters down below to jump between the games if you want to do that. I'm not going to be covering all the different features of these packs here because I've done that in my prior videos, so links down below and in the corner. Definitely go recommend you check those out if you want to know all the features these bring to the table, which are numerous, and they've continued to update these, and every time they push an update to the newer games, the older games get it too, which I really appreciate. So that's really nice thing that Bitwave is doing, but you can find out all about that in there. So we're going to jump between the games here. I'm going to show you each one and what's cool about each of them, because I do generally like them all. And let me know down in the comments as well what other series or developers you'd like to see Bitwave tackle next. They've asked on their Discord before, and I have it on good authority that they do pay attention to that stuff. So yeah, leave a comment down below. Let me know what else you'd like them to tackle. But all right, without further ado, let's get into them. Okie dokie, and here we go. First up is Fixeight. So yeah, this one is one of the, so most of Toaplan's games are more traditional shmups where you're controlling like an aerial vehicle, but this one is actually quite interesting because you're not only controlling characters on the ground. As you can see here, there's a lot of them. There's 8 different characters, all of whom play quite a bit different from each other. And this is definitely one of the more interesting titles in this package, I personally think. So they vary between humans and robots and aliens and all kinds of interesting stuff here. So, and what's interesting about that is you can see I stepped on that charge panel thing. So by doing that in this game, you'll see these charge panels spread throughout the levels, and as you step on those, it will change effectively what your combat stance is. So you can either have the way I started off, which is where you have the ability to direct your shots left and right based on how you move, so like this, sort of like that. Or if you stand on it, you can only fire straight ahead, but you have a more powerful shot generally. The weapons can be powered up, as you would typically expect in a game like this, but it allows you to kind of choose the way you want to approach that. Now, that said, I have found that in some of the later levels in particular, you don't really have a choice. There are certain circumstances where you're going to be funneled down a path where you really need things to work, where you really need a particular stance in order to be successful. And that's something in some cases you're going to have to learn as you go. But yeah, this game is very odd because Toaplan games don't generally have a lot of characterization in them, right? You're playing sort of a nondescript air or spaceship going through the levels, and that's kind of it. And they're not big on story either. This game doesn't really have much of a story either, but it has a lot of characters in it, and the characters are very weird and creative and goofy, which is kind of what you want out of something like this, right? And each of them plays very differently. They have very different weapons, and their secondary attack, as you can see, or their special attack, as you can see, is not just your typical screen clearing bomb. Each of these is completely different as well and has a very different impact on things. And the game, you can see, is a little bit later in terms of Toaplan's technical catalog, I guess, if you want to put it that way. You know, this was made a little bit later in the company's lifespan, so they've definitely got some more technical chops going on here. There's a lot more visual effects going on. You know, it's just a much fancier thing, and you can see they get really weird with the enemies. Like, that enemy looks like something out of Contra, you know, really strange looking alien thing. So they really kind of they really sort of let their creativity fly in this one, I think, more so than in some of their other games. And the look probably won't be for everybody, but I don't know. I like stuff that's weird like this sometimes. I think it, you know, it makes things a bit more memorable and a bit more interesting. So I'm going to actually let myself get taken out here so that I can show you guys what another character looks like. I know I could just restart, but whatever. So you can choose between like I said, these large number of characters that go between various humans, robots, and aliens, and they all play differently. And in that way, this game actually does have a fair amount of replay value, I think. You know, it allows you to play it over different ways with different types of characters and builds and ways to sort of attack things, because you do have to play fairly differently if you want to make use of all the different character abilities you have. So I think that's kind of cool. I do like that as well, because most of the games by this developer are very focused around, you know, being good at one particular thing, you know, one particular ship or character, or one type of protagonist, I guess you'd say. Whereas in this, you have a lot of different options, and I think that's kind of cool. This is really where it feels like Toaplan maybe felt a little bit more comfortable, you know, and felt that they were able to be a little bit less safe. You know, it wasn't too many years after this came out, unfortunately, that the company went under, but I don't necessarily think it was because of their, you know, their efforts at having some burgeoning creativity like this. So I think this is one of their cooler shmups, actually, and I really appreciate how they chose to kind of go, they really chose to color outside the lines with this one. As some of their games go too, you know, some Toaplan games are notoriously brutally hard. This starts off fairly straightforward. You can also see it moves really fast too, right? Like, it doesn't waste any time. It's just go, 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 go. And I found that this one it's challenging. They'll all get challenging by the end. You know, they're arcade games, you know, they're designed to take your money, and this one certainly will. But you're not going to have to spend quite the amount of time on this one as you would on other ones, I think. Like, look, this guy's like a lizard. Like, why? Because why not, effectively. But this character and his attack kind of reminds me of something. I don't know why. I'm getting a vibe of a Sega Genesis game from him. I don't know that. I may be making that up, but it kind of feels like that. Like, there's something familiar about him. I don't know what it is. But yeah, this plays pretty well, and it is challenging. You know, it's going to take you some work if you want to 1cc it, but it's not going to brutalize you the way some other Toaplan games did. Some Toaplan titles were just hard in a way that was just punitive, you know, and mean. And I think, honestly, I think in their later titles in general, they kind of found a better balance of that, of, you know, making the games challenging enough that they would be profitable for the operator, which at the end of the day was their customer, right? Their customer was the arcade operator, not the players. And they found, but I think they struck a better balance of finding games that are hard enough that they will bring in the quarters, but are not just utterly vicious like some of their other titles were. So yeah, I like this one a lot, actually. I've had some good fun with it, and you know, you can see that high score up there. That's not like, Toaplan games are also notorious for having insanely high factory high scores that can often be very difficult to get past. I didn't have too much trouble with that, and I've actually put that way beyond the factory one, which is a rarity for games from this company, to be sure. And here we go as well. There's actually some little vehicle sections in this where you can take over a you know, sort of little flying vehicles like this. Again, really breaking the mold for what we know from them. So this is a really good one. I've been enjoying this. This is one that I think will be really good to play 2-player. Other thing as well, these games are all, you know, there is co-op in these games as well. It does not have online play, but because these are on PC, at least on the Steam versions, you can easily Steam remote play or use a free tool like Parsec to have someone connect to you and effectively have online without it really being online, you know? So yeah, this one has been a nice a nice pleasant surprise. I'm enjoying Fixeight quite a bit. This is one I definitely like. But let's move on to the next one in this pack. We still got 3 more to go. Okay, and here's the next one. This is Tiger-Heli. This one I'm going to say is probably the most, the safest, most familiar of Toaplan stuff. It feels like kind of like their older games a little bit. If I were to have one that I would say is my least favorite of the pack, it's probably this one. But again, that's not to say it's bad. Really, I don't think any of the games in any of these packs are bad. You know, Toaplan, even some of their, even what many would consider their worst games. Wow, I did really well off the bat there, didn't I? Even what a lot of people would consider their worst games are still pretty good. And they're all, these guys understood the shmup quite well. And you know what I kind of like about these packs is that it's not, they're not generational, if you were. Like, they weren't, Bitwave didn't go like, you know, this pack is all of this era of Toaplan and this pack is all another era of Toaplan. They went that each of the packs have stuff that spans different, I guess you would say, generations of their work, which I think is kind of cool. But this one, as you can see, is fairly simple. It's much more of their older formula. It's, you know, here's a top-down, it's a top-down game. You're playing an aircraft, a helicopter in this case, and you know, you just got to blow stuff up. Why? Because we say so. You know, that's really all there is to it. Pretty simple, kind of like the riding games in that it's just, you know, it's not trying to tell you a story or anything. It's just like, look, here's stuff you got to blow up. Do it, get points, you know, and that's it. And you got your standard shot here, as you can see, and a bomb attack, which is kind of interesting. I kind of like that the bomb attack is not a screen clearing attack, but it's also, it's different, right? It's a spread out attack that goes around you, but the hitbox isn't the entirety of your character. Like you can see when you send the bombs out, right, that they kind of have their own little AoE. I think that's kind of interesting. But as you can see, this game is a lot harder, and because there's no continues, you know, when you're dead, you're dead. It also does the whole, you know, checkpoint-based system of a game like R-Type, where it's going to take you back a little bit, and if you have any power-ups, well, you ain't going to have them no more. You know, that kind of thing. It's a little bit more punitively hard, where, you know, you can get yourself to a fairly powerful state, but then the game will just basically, you know, slap you back if you die once. Fairly common among arcade games. This is the habit that Toaplan generally got out of in their later games, which I like. I appreciate that. I like that they found an alternative way to do that. But my biggest complaint with this game is that, as you can see, it's very slow. Scrolling is slow. Your chopper is very slow. The enemy's bullets are generally not. So dodging stuff can be fun. You gotta really lead the enemy shots in order to make sure that you don't get hit by things. And as you can see, you know, these are tanks largely that I'm fighting right now, but they can turn the guns real fast. So, you know, some people aren't gonna like that. Some people like games like this that are a little bit more slower paced and aren't quite as frantic, you know, aren't really of the bullet hell variety, I guess you'd say. This one's definitely not, but I think there's a middle ground. You know, I prefer stuff, I don't mind bullet hell games, I'm just terrible at them, but you know, I think there's a good balance to be struck between the franticness of a bullet hell and this kind of slowness. You know, that's kind of just me. but you know, people are going to have to decide on that a little bit. So there are a couple of power-ups, but they are, well, I got one and then I lost it right away. But there are some power-ups in this that are kind of interesting. There are these little, and you see they kind of spawn in and out, so you got to watch for them. You can pick up these little, my head's in the way of it, but you can pick up these kind of bonus tokens that'll get rewarded at the end of the level. And you can also pick up little assistive helicopters. So this little white helicopter that you see flying in here, it kind of reminds me of Galaga, where rather than give you a power up for the weapon or something, you're actually picking up a sidekick that has his own weapons and capabilities, right? It's kind of a cool idea. Now, what's interesting, though, is it can take its own separate damage. So it can get destroyed when you can survive, potentially. Again, very much like Galaga. I think Toaplan often like to take inspiration from a lot of prior games that came before it. Taking ideas and not just ripping them off wholesale, but integrating them into their games in kind of an interesting way. And I think that's what they did with that sidekick method. So this isn't wholly generic. It does do some things, you know, a little bit different. And again, I like that about Toaplan. There's always a little twist in all of their games. They're not just copies of each other. You know, they don't just release games that are sequels to things that came before, where it's the same thing but different levels or a little bit better technology or something like that. They always have gameplay innovations. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're fairly subtle. But when you play different Toaplan games, you're always going to have something in each one that's going to be unique to that. And that was one of the things that I think made them stand out as a developer, because in the arcade era, there was a lot of clones and there was a lot of quick rush job titles that came out because, you know, the more titles you get in the market, the more boards you sell, and, you know, the quicker you grow as a company. So a lot of developers were very much about just cranking things out as fast as they could and being as derivative as possible. And Toaplan games always felt very familiar, but they often had their own little twist to them that made them unique. I think that was one of the reasons that they're so revered as a shmup developer. But yeah, you've kind of seen the core of this one. I don't dislike this, but it is my least favorite game in this pack, only because I prefer stuff that's a little bit faster. But there's a segment of shmup players who are very much going to like this, I think. And if you're one of those, then I think you're going to have a good time with this one. But yeah, that's Tiger-Heli. That's the second one. I didn't show you a lot of this just because I'm not very good at this, because, well, I try to play it too fast and then I get my butt kicked as a result of that. But, you know, that's how things tend to go. But again, still a good entry, I think, of maybe the more Raiden adjacent variety, shall we say. So, okay, we got two more to go. So let's go check out the next one. Okay, and here's the third one. And I have to admit that before this pack, this is a Toaplan shmup I'd never played and I'd actually never heard of. To my great surprise, I will definitely say. But this is one I've enjoyed. I did credit feed my way all the way to the end of this one. There is a story in this, in the sense that you do get a little cutscene at the end that explains some stuff. And I do believe, I haven't confirmed this yet, I probably should have before I started recording, but based on the ending cutscene that I got, I'm pretty sure there's multiple endings to this one, depending on how you do certain things, which is cool. That's something Toaplan never really did very much, was the whole multiple ending thing. And yeah, the story cutscene you get at the end, it doesn't mean much. It's a shmup story, whatever. But, you know, kind of neat that it does that, and the multiple ending thing is kind of cool. As you can see, this is another, you know, another vertical deal, which was mostly what they did. And it is space themed, but this one I do enjoy a lot more because, as you can see right now, you move a lot quicker. This is also a bit later in terms of technology for Toaplan. This is more of a 16-bit game, whereas Tiger-Heli was more of an 8-bit game. This one's also cool as well because it's just got a lot of really interesting enemies. Again, another one where they kind of got creative and sort of felt a little more comfortable letting their creativity fly and being different and a little bit weird, which I like. So it plays a lot more like a standard vertical shmup. You've got your gun and you've got your special move. Now the special move is kind of neat because again, it's not a screen clearing thing. You sort of put these orbs around you that can do a certain amount of damage before they disappear. They will automatically seek out enemies, and they can take out multiple lower end enemies, or they will just do, you know, damage to a boss. But they don't instantly clear the screen. They have to fly out around you, and the more they fly out, the less guarded you are. So, you know, that's kind of a cool concept, I think, as well. Again, not just your standard screen clearing bomb thing, which I always appreciate. And this one is, again, it starts out fairly easy. It will get harder later, especially if you die late into a level. The game will still remind you who's in charge. Oh yes. And you don't switch weapons in this. There are not multiple weapons. A lot of Toaplan games, not all of them again, but a lot of them really focused around the concept of having you work with only one weapon, but learning that one weapon in and out, and powering it up and learning about how it powered up, and really becoming a master of one set of tools instead of giving you multiple tools that you can go through. So you have power-ups that you can pick up for this weapon, but there are not additional weapons, which is kind of cool. And as you can see there, what you might have just seen on that screen there is there are actually, I call them evolving enemies. So you'll see here enemies that come in, and then there are smaller, lower level enemies that come in at the same time. And if you can't kill the smaller enemies before they interact with the larger one, they will effectively evolve into higher level enemies themselves. So they can become more valuable in terms of score, but they can also make your life more difficult, right? Cool idea. Enemy evolution like that, not something that hasn't been done elsewhere necessarily, but a really cool concept. And I like how they do it here. And the fact that it's not guaranteed to happen. If you can fight them and take out the smaller enemies quick enough, you can avoid having the bigger enemies. Or if you want to go for some score greed, you can, you know, you can try to balance that and let them evolve to do more damage to them. Cool idea. I really like that. And yeah, I like the way this is presented. The enemies are unique and different, but they don't go too crazy. It's not like you know, it's not like Fixeight where the enemies just get really wacky and they just went full strange with it. But this is a little different than normal, and the enemies do vary a lot in terms of their attacks and hit points and the frequency in which they come in. Like right there, those are all low level enemies, but they come in really quick, which is kind of interesting. Also in this game, you don't die and checkpoint back. You do lose your weapons, so that is something you'll have to be cognizant of, but it doesn't haul you back to an earlier point in the stage. You respawn in place, which is kind of cool. You know, a different way of approaching things that I do like, and it often doesn't leave you stranded without decent weapons for too long. You saw I took out a higher level enemy there and it dropped out 4 weapon upgrades. That doesn't always happen, but it can happen to the point where when you die, you don't feel like, it's not like in R-type games where if you die once, you're kind of hosed. You know, and that's very much by design, but this one seems to be a little nicer to you about it, which I appreciate. And there are score bonuses you can pick up there. The way they work is kind of interesting. You not only have to pick them up once they drop, but every subsequent upgrade you pick up, and this persists through continues as well, every subsequent bonus you pick up goes up by 100 points. The value goes up by 100 points. So you see that last one I picked up was 1700, that's 1800, and that can go into the thousands, which is a neat idea. The fact that it persists through continues, I thought was interesting. I think some people might think that that's a little unfair in terms of unbalancing the scoring system for leaderboards, but I don't really think so, because this does do the typical thing which is the way I believe it should be done, which is that when you continue, your score resets. I've never understood games with high score systems that retain your score between credits. That just basically means that you can credit feed your way through it just to get to the top of the leaderboard without having to have any skill. And that I always thought was just dumb. That was essentially pay to win, which I didn't agree with. So This does keep the scoring stuff persistent, which is probably its own little way of rewarding you, you know, keeping your money feeding into it. But it's not going to save you from, you know, a potentially good score that you've lost because you had to continue. So that's okay. I think that's again, little Toaplan innovation that you don't see very often, and I think it's a fair counterbalance that they put there. Some people might disagree, but I think it's fine. Personally, you know, as someone who does believe in the purity of the high score, you know, of high score systems in games, I think they held that together in a perfectly fair way. So, but yeah, I did enjoy this one. I did credit feed my way to the end, and I do kind of like the speed and pacing of this one because, again, it's not bullet hell insanity, but it's not dog slow like Tiger-Heli was. This is one that I could see myself getting good enough with. Hi, dog. Don't mind the dog shake. This is one that I could see myself getting into in terms of maybe wanting to learn how to 1cc it. Because the later levels are hard and do get really, really frantic, don't get me wrong. But I could see myself putting the time into this to be able to get good enough at it to 1cc it, because it's not so crazy that it's going to be hard to memorize enemy patterns and that you're going to have to just, you know, be laser focused at all times in order to make sure that you don't miss anything like in a bullet hell. So I like that, and I think that that actually works out pretty well. But yeah, this one has been quite a joy, and I'm glad I learned about it. This pack, you know, got me to learn what this is because I hadn't heard of Vimana before this, so I'm very happy about that. This is definitely I think a lesser known Toaplan classic, but it is very much a classic for sure, and I do recommend this one. But we're gonna save what some people would consider the best for last, so stick around. We got one more game to cover. All right, and here's the last one from this pack, guys. This is one that a lot of people know Toaplan for well. Some would say it's one of their best games. So this is Batsugun or Batsugun. I don't know the right way to pronounce it, so it's one of those, I think. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But yeah, this one is quite this is a real banger in terms of vertical shmup. So you got 3 different options here for characters / ships. And this is quite late in Toaplan's technical life, as you can see here. We got a lot of impressive visual effects. The character models are really cool. The music is a step up from, you know, what many people think of. A lot of people think of that, you know, Yamaha MIDI twang when they think of Toaplan because they were big fans of that. But this definitely goes up a notch. I can't remember the year that Batsugun came out, but it was definitely late in Toaplan's life. Toaplan went under in, I believe it was 94. I know they were working on a sequel to Snow Bros at the time, which is a game that doesn't get enough love in my opinion. And just saying, Bitwave, you want to put out Snow Bros and maybe Snow Bros 2 if there's even a prototype ROM out there, I'd play that. But yeah, because this was late in their life cycle, obviously it's got, you know, it's got a look and it's got some really sick audio. It's a little shrill. I haven't had a chance to try this out in another format. I don't know if this is down to the emulation or that they're using, or if the game was always this shrill. I know that prior to my recording here, they did push out a patch that improved some audio stuff in one of the games, but yeah, it is a little shrill, but it's not that bad. But as you can see here, this feels much more traditional shmup, in particular the 90s sort of bullet hell. This is probably the closest Toaplan ever got to real bullet hell. And I mean, real bullet hell fans are gonna go amateurs, but you know, as Toaplan went, this got pretty complicated, but it's very technically impressive. And yeah, you have 3 different characters. You have, and it plays much more like a standard thing. You have your normal power-ups that that you pick up throughout the levels. You have those sort of bonus tokens, those little sort of golden V's there, and the more of those you keep, the more score that you'll get. The game is fairly high scoring, as you can see. I've actually managed to get a pretty high score in this one as well. And you have traditional power-ups that you'll pick up. that will boost up your power score. There is some enemy evolving in this, though not quite the way there was in Vimana. And as you can see there on the bottom, you actually have experience in this that you get by taking out enemies and bosses, and also picking up some of these golden Vs. And as you get enough of it, your character and your ship will actually evolve in its own way. So not just the enemies are evolving this time, you are actually evolving as well, which is a really cool concept as well. This has been done in other games before. You know, I think of experience in shmups. So there's one right there. As you can see, your gun goes, your gun kind of gets turned up to 11, and it does a screen clear there as well. There have been experience systems in shmups before. I'm thinking games like Forgotten Worlds and things like that. There has definitely been, this is not a first either, but I don't think Toaplan ever did anything like this other than in this game. So it's a cool system for sure. And yeah, as you can see, this game compared to a lot of their other ones is really flashy. Toaplan games were never ugly, but a lot of the times they weren't the fanciest things. They looked good, but they weren't giant crazy spectacles like you would see out of a lot of games, particularly in the 90s, where they just needed them to be. And in some ways, I think it was rooted in kind of pachinko culture, right? Where you needed things to be very, very flashy and very loud, and making lots of bings and bangs and bloops to try to draw people in, right? To get people to look at them, both not only in an attract mode, but to see the people, you know, to see them being played over somebody's shoulder, right? And really needing them to stand out visually. And I'm still bummed that Toaplan died when they did, because I would have loved to have seen what that company could have done in like the PlayStation era, and when shmups started to integrate 3D. I'm curious if they would have gone to 3D. I'm curious if they would have tried to stay in the 2D realm. And just because you can see, if you play all the games in this collection and you go through all the different, you know, I sort of refer to them as technical eras or technical life cycles of Toaplan, you'll see that this is a company that was constantly evolving. They didn't really rest on their laurels. They were always advancing themselves, you know, graphically, sound-wise, technology-wise in general. They were always really advancing. Wow, I died right at 500,000 points. That's hilarious. Let's try another character here. Characters have very different weapons, as you can see. What is that? I figured that would be a bonus of some kind. I did not see that pig in my prior playthrough. But you could see that Toaplan was always evolving, and they were always upping not only their technical game, but their design game. They were always adding new things and innovating in the shmup genre, which, as much as I love shmups, and as many shmups as there were in the 90s, a lot of them were really variations on a theme. Even a lot of the good ones were variations on a theme. They were all, some of them were similar to the point where you could almost call them interchangeable. And any Toaplan games that you would sit down and play, you could go, yeah, they have a core, you know, system here, core design ethos that was common in most shmups that they were adhering to, but they were always doing something a little bit different each time. And I've talked about this when talking about the other games in this package, but that is I think that's one of the core reasons that Toaplan is so revered as a developer, and why shmup fans are really, really big on the stuff that they made in particular. And I always did think that they were a developer that died too soon. There are a lot of reasons that could have happened. I mean, Toaplan focused almost exclusively on home consoles when other people were, other developers were diversifying, or sorry, Toaplan, they didn't focus on home consoles. Toaplan continued to focus primarily on arcade games when a lot of other developers were focusing, diversifying into home consoles. Toaplan did do some home stuff, but by and large, they stayed in arcades, maybe after arcades were starting to lose their relevancy, at least in the West. And there could be that, you know, if you go deep into reading Toaplan history, there's rumors the Yakuza were involved in the company. and that they controlled it, and there was all these other things. So, I mean, you know, I don't know if that's true or not, but there's a lot of different reasons that they could have gone under. But I really think that if these guys could have, because they were mostly a shmup developer, but they didn't just make shmups. They made games like Snow Brothers. They made, you know, they made Pee and Dee Dee. Dee Dee, am I pronouncing that right? I don't know. I did a video on a re-release of that. You should go check out as well. They did other games too. And I think maybe if they'd gotten a chance to, you know, approach the home console market a little bit more and maybe get their hands into 3D, that they could have made some really cool stuff that they never got a chance to. And that always kind of bums me out a little bit, because there was a lot of talent in this company and a clear need to want to innovate, to not just keep putting out reskins of the same thing, which was very common. You know, people say that, oh, all AAA games today are the same, but there was a lot of cloning and, you know, playing it very safe, even back in this era of gaming. And Toaplan never felt like they did that. And, you know, sometimes the companies that didn't play it safe were the ones that burned out early, and maybe that's all it was. You know, maybe that's why they died sooner than they deserved to. I don't know, but you know, this was late in their life, and you can absolutely see, looking at this, just how far they came over the course of their life. You know, this was them making a light bullet hell and showing some real technical and artistic chops along the way. And between where they started and where they sort of ended here was a real advancement and really impressive. And I'm really, really glad to see that Bitwave has put these collections out, because this is a company that deserves more recognition, just you know, than just inside the hardcore shmup community. And I do hope that these packages will give people the ability to experience more of what made this company so cool, and maybe get some more people into a genre that is slowly making an indie comeback, but that I really think deserves to come back in a big way, because it's shmups are cool. They're a very raw genre. They're all about the gameplay. You know, they're not about the story. They're not about stories or huge narratives or anything like that. They're just about raw mechanics, which is the main reason I come to games, and just about taking on a challenge and besting it. And I like that. I like that simplicity, but at the same time, you can still have a lot of depth within that simple formula. And Toaplan were among the very best at it. So yeah, I'm happy to see that Bitwave put this out. I am very excited to see what they do next. And again, you know, if you have ideas for other things that you'd love to see Bitwave get their hands on to release, they are listening. So leave a comment down below. I'll make sure that they read them. Let me know what other classic arcade games you'd love to see them make. Drop in their Discord too, because they do have they have had multiple discussions there. And I remember when they had the first one of those, right around the time I covered the first one of these packs, I was in there with a bunch of other people just rhyming franchises off left and right, and the community manager was like, I'm writing all this down. He's like, I can't guarantee nothing, but he said, we're writing it all down because we want to know what people want. So, and these guys are talented. These packs are very well made. They have a ton of extra features that are well implemented. They've been supporting them well. When they've added new features that have come out with new packs, they always backport those features to the old packs, which is not something very many developers do, and I respect the hell out of them for doing that, for continuing to support their older releases, even though these are niche and they haven't sold a bazillion copies. They've kept supporting them, and they've kept expanding them and adding new things to them for fans. And I don't really think we as fans can ask for anything more than that. So good job to them. And if this is the last Toaplan pack, I am very excited to see what they bring to market next. So yeah, so that's Batsugun, and that is the Toaplan Shoot 'em Up Pack Volume 3. I highly recommend these. They're all excellent packs of great games from a great developer. And if you like shmups even a little bit, or think you might, this is a great pack to get in on. It is available on Steam, and it's on GOG as well. If you prefer to buy from GOG, I will have affiliate links down in the description. If you click those before you buy them, it does help my channel out. So I definitely would appreciate that if you're interested in getting them that way. But this is a great package. Highly recommend them all. And you know, get yourself some good shmupulations. It is well worth it if you haven't tried this genre. Experience it for yourself, because I think it'll surprise you just how enjoyable it can be. So thank you guys all very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you liked what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things. Those do help out a great deal. And like I said, leave a comment down below on what other shmups or other arcade classics you'd like to see Bitwave bring out. And you can also follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction. At time of recording, the streams are going to be coming back soon, and we're going to be focusing on retro stuff over there, tackling what I'm calling my deep backlog. It's a project I'm really excited for, and we have a fantastic little community there, and I would love to see you be a part of it. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you on the next Retro Ramble. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.